Welcome to English Guru. Improve your English through engaging stories, listening practice, and fun learning. Whether you're a beginner or advanced learner, our content will help you grow your vocabulary, pronunciation, and comprehension. Subscribe now and start your English learning journey with us. Story 1. The Mysterious Letter. It was a peaceful afternoon in the small town of Willowbrook. Birds chirped in the trees, children played in the park, and Emma sat by her window reading her favorite book. She loved mystery stories, but little did she know that she was about to live one herself. Suddenly, the doorbell rang. Emma, curious, put her book down and walked to the door. When she opened it, there was no one there. She looked left and right, but the street was empty. Then, her eyes fell on a small brown envelope lying on the ground. It had her name written in neat handwriting, but there was no return address. She picked up the envelope and turned it over in her hands. Who could have sent this? Her heart beat faster as she carefully opened it. Inside was a single sheet of paper with a message written in black ink. Meet me at the old oak tree at midnight. Come alone. Emma's breath caught in her throat. Who would send such a note? Was this a joke? A prank? Or something more? She had so many questions, but only one way to find answers. Emma sat at her desk, staring at the note. She thought about calling her best friend Jake, but something inside her told her this was a journey she had to take alone. Midnight seemed far away, yet her mind raced with possibilities. As the evening went by, she tried to distract herself with her book, but she kept glancing at the clock. 9 p.m. 10 p.m. 11:30 p.m. Finally, she grabbed her jacket and a flashlight. She took a deep breath and stepped outside. The cold night air sent shivers down her spine, but she was determined. The old oak tree stood at the edge of town, near an abandoned barn. Its thick branches stretched toward the sky, casting eerie shadows in the moonlight. As Emma approached, her footsteps crunched on the dry leaves. She looked around. The wind rustled the trees, and an owl hooted in the distance. But there was no one there. Just as she was about to leave, she heard a whisper. Emma! Her heart pounded. Who's there? She called. From behind the tree, a figure stepped forward. It was a boy about her age, with dark hair and a serious expression. My name is Lucas, he said. I need your help. Emma hesitated. How do you know my name? She asked. Lucas sighed. It's a long story, but first, do you believe in mysteries? Emma nodded slowly. I love mysteries. Then you're the right person for this, Lucas said. He pulled something from his pocket. A small, golden key. This key opens something important. He continued. But I don't know what. My grandfather left it for me before he disappeared, and I think you can help me figure it out. Emma's eyes widened. Disappeared? What do you mean? Lucas looked down. One day, he just vanished. No one knows where he went. But before he left, he told me to find the right person to help me. And that person is you. Emma felt a mix of fear and excitement. Where do we start? Lucas handed her a piece of paper. This was in my grandfather's desk. I think it's a clue. Emma unfolded it. The note read, The past holds the answers. Seek the house with the blue door. Emma and Lucas exchanged a look. They both knew exactly where to go next. The house with the blue door stood at the end of an old cobblestone street. It looked abandoned, its paint peeling, and the windows covered in dust. Emma and Lucas approached cautiously. Lucas hesitated before knocking on the door. No answer. He tried again. Still silence. Maybe we should just go in? Emma suggested. Lucas pushed the door gently, and to their surprise, it creaked open. Inside, the air smelled of old books and wood. The house was dimly lit by the moonlight filtering through the broken curtains. Furniture was covered in dust and cobwebs. Look at this, Emma whispered, pointing to a large portrait on the wall. It was a picture of an old man, his eyes staring intensely. That's my grandfather, Lucas said softly. Suddenly, a noise came from upstairs. Emma and Lucas exchanged nervous glances. Did you hear that? Emma whispered. Lucas nodded. We should check it out. Slowly, they climbed the creaky stairs. At the end of the hallway, a faint light flickered under a closed door. Lucas reached for the handle and turned it. The door swung open. Inside was a study filled with books, maps, and old papers. A single candle burned on the desk. In the middle of the room, an old woman sat in a rocking chair, staring at them. I've been expecting you, she said in a raspy voice. Emma and Lucas froze. The woman's piercing eyes studied them, as if searching their souls. Who are you? Lucas finally asked. The woman sighed and gestured to the chairs in front of her. Sit down. We have much to discuss. Emma hesitated but took a seat. Lucas followed, gripping the golden key tightly. Your grandfather was a wise man. The woman began, but his discoveries put him in great danger. He left clues so that only the right people could find the truth. Emma leaned forward. What truth? The woman pointed at a dusty old chest in the corner. The key you hold will open that chest. But be warned, once you unlock it, there is no turning back. Lucas swallowed hard. Slowly, he stood up and approached the chest. His hands trembled as he inserted the key into the lock. With a soft click, the chest creaked open. Inside, they found a stack of old letters, a worn-out leather journal, and a small wooden box. Lucas picked up the journal and opened it to the first page. His grandfather's handwriting filled the pages. To whoever finds this, you must follow the map. Time is running out. Lucas turned the pages frantically until he found a folded piece of paper tucked between them. He carefully unfolded it and revealed an old map with red ink marking a location deep in the woods outside Willowbrook. This must be where he went, Lucas exclaimed. The woman nodded. But beware. Others seek what your grandfather found. They will do anything to stop you. Emma and Lucas exchanged nervous glances. There was no choice now. They had to follow the map. The next morning, they packed supplies and set off towards the woods. The path was overgrown, and every snapping twig made Emma's heart race. The deeper they walked, the darker the forest became. Are we sure about this? Emma whispered. Lucas glanced at the map. We're close. Just a little farther. Suddenly, a shadow moved between the trees. A rustling sound came from behind them. Did you hear that? Emma asked, gripping Lucas's arm. Before he could answer, a deep voice growled from the darkness. You shouldn't have come here. Emma and Lucas turned to see a hooded figure stepping out from the shadows. His face was hidden, but his voice carried a menacing tone. Give me the map. Now. Lucas instinctively tucked the map into his jacket. Who are you? He demanded. The figure took a step closer. That doesn't matter. Hand it over, and no one gets hurt. Emma grabbed Lucas's hand. Run, she shouted. They dashed through the dense forest, branches whipping against their faces. The figure pursued them, his footsteps heavy and determined. The map was their only clue to Lucas's grandfather's secret, and they weren't about to give it up. As they ran, Emma spotted a narrow opening in a rock formation ahead. In here, she whispered. They squeezed inside, pressing themselves against the damp stone walls. Outside, The footsteps stopped. The hooded man cursed under his breath. "You can't hide forever." Minutes passed before his footsteps faded into the distance. Emma exhaled in relief. That was close. Lucas pulled out the map. "Look at this," he said, pointing to a marking that resembled a cave. "We're standing right where the map leads." Emma turned on her flashlight and aimed it deeper into the cave. The walls were covered in strange symbols. In the center of the cave, a stone pedestal held a small wooden box, identical to the one in the chest. Lucas hesitated before lifting the box. He opened it carefully and found a key wrapped in an old cloth. A note rested beneath it, written in his grandfather's handwriting. "If you've found this, then you are ready. The final key unlocks what I have hidden beneath Willowbrook Library." Emma's eyes widened. "The library? That's in the center of town." Lucas clenched the key. "We need to get there before that man does." Emma and Lucas arrived at Willowbrook Library just before dawn. The towering building was empty at this hour, its grand wooden doors locked. Lucas held up the key. "There has to be a hidden entrance. My grandfather wouldn't have left this clue. Otherwise." They circled the building until Emma spotted something. "Look! That basement window is slightly open." Carefully, they squeezed through and landed in a dusty storage room filled with old books and forgotten artifacts. Lucas pulled out the map and studied it under the dim emergency light. The markings show a hidden passage behind the main bookshelf. Emma brushed aside cobwebs as they navigated through the quiet corridors. Finally, they found the grand bookshelf at the far end of the library. Lucas pushed against it, but nothing happened. "There has to be a mechanism," he muttered. Emma's eyes landed on a carved owl figure in the wood. She pressed it, and with a low rumble, the bookshelf slid aside, revealing a stone staircase leading down into darkness. Descending carefully, they reached an underground chamber lit by faint torchlight. In the center stood an ornate wooden chest, its lock an exact match for the key Lucas held. Taking a deep breath, Lucas inserted the key and turned it. The lock clicked open. Inside, they found a bundle of aged papers, a leather-bound journal, and an object wrapped in cloth. Lucas unwrapped it, revealing a golden amulet engraved with strange symbols. "What is this?" Emma picked up the journal and read aloud. "This amulet is the key to a lost artifact hidden centuries ago. Protect it at all costs. There are those who would do anything to possess its power." Before they could process the discovery, a voice echoed from the entrance of the chamber. "I warned you not to interfere." The hooded figure from the forest stepped forward, his eyes gleaming with intent. Lucas clutched the amulet as Emma stepped in front of him. "Who are you? Why do you want this?" The man pulled back his hood, revealing a scarred face. "Your grandfather stole what rightfully belonged to us. That amulet is more powerful than you realize. Hand it over." Lucas shook his head. "My grandfather wanted to protect it. And so will I." The man lunged at them, but Emma grabbed a nearby book and hurled it at him, giving Lucas time to sprint toward the exit. Chasing them up the stone steps, the man reached out, nearly grabbing Lucas's arm, until Emma kicked over a bookshelf, sending it crashing down, blocking his path. Breathing heavily, they emerged into the morning light. The town was waking up, unaware of the danger lurking below. Later that day, Lucas read more of the journal. "This amulet is part of something bigger, and my grandfather's journey isn't over." Emma smiled. "Then let's make sure his story continues." With the amulet safely in their possession, they knew their adventure was only just beginning. But as they walked away from the library, Lucas felt a strange warmth radiating from the amulet. Emma noticed it too. "Did you feel that?" she asked. Lucas nodded. "I think it's trying to tell us something." As they held the amulet up to the morning sunlight, faint glowing symbols appeared on its surface. The markings seemed to shift and rearrange, forming what looked like another clue. Emma gasped. "It's a map!" "But to where?" Lucas took a deep breath. "I guess there's only one way to find out." Their journey was far from over. It had only just begun.
Story 2. The Baker's Map and the Hidden Village. Thomas loved the smell of baking bread. Every morning the warm, sweet scent filled his small bakery. He lived in a quiet village, nestled at the edge of a large old forest. His days were simple. He mixed flour, water, and yeast. He shaped dough into loaves. He baked them in his big stone oven. Thomas was a good baker. His bread was soft and delicious. People in the village loved it, but sometimes Thomas felt a little bored. His life was the same, day after day. He wished for something different, something exciting. One afternoon, while cleaning the attic above his bakery, he found an old wooden chest. It was dusty and covered in cobwebs. He opened it carefully. Inside, he found old tools, faded letters, and a strange rolled-up map. The map was made of thick, yellowed paper. It had lines and symbols that Thomas didn't understand. He unrolled it and looked closely. It showed a path through the forest, leading to a place marked with a strange symbol, a waterfall with a hidden entrance behind it. Thomas was curious. He had never seen a map like this before. He took the map downstairs and showed it to Ilara, the oldest woman in the village. Ilara lived in a small cottage near the forest. She knew many stories and secrets. Ilara looked at the map. Her eyes widened. "This is a very old map," she said. "It shows the way to the hidden village. It is a place spoken of in old stories, a place deep within the forest, where people live in harmony with nature." Thomas's heart beat faster. A hidden village. It sounded like a dream. "Do you think it's real?" he asked. "Yes, Thomas," Ilara said. "I believe it is. But the forest is a dangerous place. The path is long and difficult." Thomas thought about it. He was a baker, not an adventurer, but the map had awakened something in him. He wanted to see the hidden village. He wanted to know what was beyond the familiar streets of his village. "I want to go," he said. "I want to find the hidden village." Ilara smiled. "Then you must prepare well," she said. "The forest is full of surprises. You will need courage and you will need to be kind." Thomas went home and packed his bag. He took bread, cheese, and a warm blanket. He also took a small notebook and a pencil. He wanted to write down everything he saw. The next morning, Thomas stood at the edge of the forest. The trees were tall and dark. The air was cool and damp. He took a deep breath and stepped into the shadows. His adventure had begun. The forest was a world of green shadows and whispering leaves. Thomas followed the map, his heart pounding a little faster with each step. The path was barely visible, sometimes just a faint trail of broken twigs and flattened grass. He had to be careful not to lose his way. After walking for hours, the sky began to darken. A sudden gust of wind shook the trees, and rain started to fall. It was a heavy, cold rain. Thomas pulled his blanket over his head, but he was soon soaked. The forest became even darker, and the path disappeared under the falling leaves. He stumbled, his feet slipping on the wet ground. He felt lost and afraid. "Maybe I should turn back," he thought. But then he remembered Ilara's words, "You will need courage." He took a deep breath and kept walking. Suddenly he saw a light through the trees. It was a small, flickering light, like a candle. He followed it, hoping to find shelter. The light led him to a small wooden hut. Smoke curled from the chimney. He knocked on the door. It opened, and there stood Ilara. "Thomas," she said, surprised but smiling, "I knew you would come." She pulled him inside. The hut was warm and dry. A fire crackled in the hearth. "I knew you would need help," she said. "The forest is tricky, especially in the rain." She gave him dry clothes and a hot cup of tea. "You are brave to come this far," she said. "Now rest. Tomorrow you will continue your journey." The next morning the rain had stopped. The sun peeked through the trees. Ilara gave Thomas a small bag of dried berries and a map marked with extra notes. "Follow this path," she said. "It will lead you to the waterfall." Thomas thanked her and set off again. The forest was bright and green after the rain. The air was fresh and clean. He followed the path, and soon he heard the sound of rushing water. He reached the waterfall. It was beautiful, a curtain of white water falling into a clear pool. He looked behind the waterfall, and there he saw a hidden entrance, just like on the map. He stepped through the waterfall and found himself in a small cave. The cave led to a hidden valley. The valley was filled with sunlight and green fields. In the middle of the valley there was a village. Thomas walked towards the village. The houses were made of wood and stone, with gardens full of flowers and vegetables. People were working in the fields, laughing and talking. A boy and a girl ran towards him. "Who are you?" the boy asked. "What are you doing here?" "My name is Thomas," he said. "I followed a map to find this village." "A map?" the girl asked. "That's strange. We don't get many visitors." "I am Finn," the boy said, "and this is my sister Lila. Come, we will show you our village." They took Thomas through the village. He saw people making baskets, weaving cloth and building houses. Everyone was kind and friendly. They shared their food and stories with him. The village was peaceful and happy. Thomas felt like he had found a home. He learned about their way of life. They lived simply, growing their own food and making their own tools. They respected nature and helped each other. One evening, Thomas noticed that the villagers looked worried. "What's wrong?" he asked. "Our water source is drying up," Lila said. "The stream that feeds our village is getting smaller and smaller." "We think it's blocked," Finn said. "But it's deep in the forest and we're afraid to go there." Old Man Hemlock, a grumpy but wise villager, spoke up. "There's an old legend," he said. "A giant tree fell across the stream, and it's said to be cursed. We've always been afraid to remove it." Thomas thought about it. He had faced his fears in the forest. "Maybe I can help," he said. "I'm a baker, but I'm also good at problem solving." He went with Finn and Lila to see the stream. It was true, a huge old tree had fallen across it, blocking the water. The tree was thick and heavy. "We need to work together," Thomas said. "We can use levers and ropes to move the tree." He explained how to make simple tools and how to use them. The villagers were hesitant, but they trusted Thomas. They worked together, pushing and pulling, lifting and moving. It was hard work, but they didn't give up. Finally, with a loud crack, the tree moved. The water flowed freely again. The villagers cheered and hugged each other. Old Man Hemlock smiled. "You have shown us that we can overcome our fears," he said. "Thank you, Thomas." The village celebrated. They had a big feast with music and dancing. Thomas felt happy and proud. He had helped them, and they had helped him. He had learned that he was braver and stronger than he thought. After a few days, it was time for Thomas to leave. He said goodbye to Finn, Lila, and all the villagers. They gave him gifts of handmade baskets and woven cloth. He walked back through the waterfall and into the forest. He felt different now, more confident and happy. He had found a hidden village, and he had found himself. When he returned to his village, he was greeted with joy. People had missed him. He told them stories of his adventure. He shared his knowledge of simple tools and problem-solving. He changed his bakery. He started teaching others how to bake. He shared his love of simple living and helping others. His bakery became a place of community where people came to learn and share. Thomas never forgot the hidden village. He visited them every year, bringing gifts and stories. He was no longer just a baker. He was an adventurer, a teacher, and a friend. He had found his purpose, and he had found his home in the hearts of others. And every time he baked bread, he remembered the whispering wind, the hidden waterfall, and the power of courage and kindness. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this mystery, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more exciting stories. Keep improving your English by listening to our stories, and see you in the next adventure.